I'm reading these all afternoon, and you can see the sun's activity on me. Um, Thanks for being with me again. I am reading some Wegener's patient stories that were kind enough to share them with me long time ago, uh, 2011, 2012. And it was going to be for a Weggie anthology, which I never got around to doing, and I feel bad about that. But being a patient myself got in the way of me being able to do stuff. So I am honoring their bravery and participation in this crazy idea. My idea is that hopefully our stories can help somebody else. And we're going to do it this way via YouTube. I think it's going to probably reach a lot more people than a Weggie book. So here's Mike's story. Mike. Late August 2011, I started coughing up blood. I started having fevers, low grade, but continuously throughout the day and night. I started with severe sweats and eventually noticed the sweats were tied in with my fevers. I was so tired. I would work and it would take me 3 times as long to complete my work. I currently live in Chatham, Ontario, Canada, and received treatment in London, Ontario. The summer of 2011 was extremely hot here in Chatham, unusually so. I'm self-employed and have been for about 30 years installing floor coverings. My hobby is woodworking. I craft wooden cremation urns. I would build the urns and my wife would finish them. This was to be our retirement plan. I was so tired throughout the entire summer. I would go to work, come home, just exhausted. I really thought little of this. I just kept blaming it on the heat. We would usually spend a lot of our time at our friends at the lake nearby, but I really didn't have the energy. I just waited for the heat wave to pass. By the end of August, I had a bit of a cough. I would struggle to get the phlegm out. A couple of times I noticed it was what I called a brownish color. I had mentioned it to my wife, but I think the fact I said it was brownish threw her off track. We had started our plan to kick the habit and had begun to slow down on our smoking, so we both thought it was my lungs clearing up. That was till one day I spit out some phlegm into a Kleenex and my wife saw the color. It wasn't brownish, it was blood. That sent her into immediate action. She called the family doctor and got an appointment for the next day. It is now September 8th, 2011. I went for my appointment with my wife. She had my symptoms written down and we discussed them with the doctor. The doctor ordered a chest x-ray and blood work and gave me a script for Biaxin, 500 milligrams, 2 times a day for 10 days. That was heavy-duty antibiotics, so we were all sure it would clear up whatever virus I had. The nice thing about our small town is we live 5 minutes from my doctor's and across the street from the hospital, so we went over immediately for the x-rays. During the next week, I continuously spit up bloody phlegm. I had fevers, severe sweats, just sitting still. The sweat would run down my back, arms, legs, and face. I was getting more fatigued every day. It got to the point that I would get up in the morning, go for my bathroom routine, have a nap, get up to the bathroom, go back to sleep, eat, sleep, bathroom, sleep, coughing, spitting, sweating, and exhaustion. I was having trouble hearing in my left ear as well, and this had started one day when at my friend's pool. I figured I had gotten water in it and now it was plugged. It was more of an annoyance than anything. I have not worked since September 8th, 2011. My wife called for another appointment at the family doctor's to get results and report no change in symptoms. She was becoming very alarmed that I was getting much worse. I have to mention that we had just lost a close friend to cancer late August. Yes, it was reportedly lung cancer, so you can only imagine where our thoughts were while going through this. We were getting very scared. September 14th, the doctor reports that I have a couple of spots showing up on my lungs, inconclusive. He wants an immediate CT scan done on my chest and more blood work. He also ordered about a week's worth of sputum tests. Each day, I was to spit the phlegm into a specimen jar and my wife would take it down to the lab. I was put on 5 milligrams of pred, 10 the first day, decreasing by 1 until finished. Tylenol 3 was prescribed for the pain as my chest was now hurting every time I coughed. Actually, it felt like I was ripping my lungs with every cough. I was then referred to an internist here in Chatham, as well as an ENT. September 21st. I'm at the internist's office going over all my symptoms. He seems to be very stuck on the idea that he must lecture me about my smoking. I have told him about our plan to quit, that we had the patches, gum, and our plan and a quick quit date, but I would have to say that the most of the time was taken up with the lecture on no smoking. The internist had ordered a bronchoscopy. Did I pronounce that right? I think so. Stress test, blood work, and an immediate TB test back over to the family doctors so the nurse can give me the skin test. I am told to come back the next day so she can read them. At this time, my wife and I ask if there are any results from the blood work done September 15th, my wife's birthday. It seems that our doctor is off with a bad back and no one can read, or should I say, interpret the results. The nurse tries the best she can, and we know some items are out of norm range, but none of us can be sure what they mean. The skin test now shows negative results, no TB. For now, still waiting on sputum test results. September 22, more blood work, this time for the internist. Yeah, at least someone can read or interpret the results this time. September 23rd, Doppler at the internist office. Scheduled bronchoscopy for September 28th. All the while, I'm not feeling at all good. I am sleeping about 20 to 22 hours in a day. Just to take a shower, take every bit of energy I have. I am most certain I am most certain I'm going to die. That's a common thing. I'm pretty sure I have lung cancer and it is advanced. The scope is over and we went relatively well, not too uncomfortable. The internist has taken 18 biopsies of scraping and has sent them away for testing. He went out to speak to my wife and told her he saw no cancer and was pretty sure there was no lung involvement. He stated that he did see some bleeding in the nasal cavity and recommended an appointment with an ENT. She was very relieved to hear no cancer, but did ask what the cavities were that showed up on his X-rays. She was told that he didn't know. We had a follow-up appointment for October 6th to get the results from the scope. We walked home. I mentioned we live across the street. And within 10 minutes, the internist office called to reschedule my follow-up appointment to October 12th. As the doctor felt there was no lung involvement. I really didn't need the appointment that soon. My wife was furious. She pleaded with the nurse to help us out. I could hear her say, "This is a 52-year-old, healthy, up to 1 month ago, male, and should not be this sick. Something is terribly wrong, and he needs someone to help." The nurse told my wife the internist suggested the ENT, and when my wife told her the appointment was scheduled for October 17th, and I could not wait that long, the nurse promised to see what she could do. The nurse called back right away and got the ENT appointment changed to October 4th at the hospital. September 30th. CT scan with contrast dye is scheduled. Finally, we have been waiting since September 14th, and I know that isn't really long when you are this sick. It is very long. October 1st is 2nd. My wife wants me to go to the emergency department. Our emergency is so well known for 10-hour waits or longer. I cannot do it. I do not have the strength to sit here that long. I am so very exhausted. She wants to drive me to London. The wait is likely to be as long, but she has faith that I would be seen by a specialist and they could figure this out. I turned down her idea, surprised she didn't fight me harder on that one. I must be very sick or she would have. I have pretty rough night, coughing, pain in my chest, breathing is becoming difficult. October 3rd. My wife comes home early from work and I am in my usual spot, where I have been living this past while, my lounge chair. She tells me that enough is enough. She's taking me across the street now to the emergency room. I'm hedging a bit and she won't have it. It's 10 a.m. in the morning, so we're hoping the emergency room isn't too full. The triage nurse takes us in immediately as I'm having difficulty breathing. They do the usual test on my vitals, and as usual, they are all in normal range. That in itself is so frustrating. I know I am ill. They run some blood work, do a chest x-ray, and put a mask on me and send me to the waiting room. We sit and wait and wait. I'm sleeping, sitting up. We try to find a quiet corner away from others in case I'm contagious. After a 4-hour wait, they bring me back to evaluate my condition again. The nurses know something is not right, but they do not know what it is. They get me into a gown and on a stretcher and wait for the ER doctor. When he finally arrives, he tells me the lung x-ray, or more exactly, the cavities in my lungs, are much worse than previous x-rays. There's fluid in them. He brings in a specialist. The specialist tells me I have fungal pneumonia and I will be admitted. They said that to me too. He further states that I should not have fungus in my lungs unless I have an underlying immune disease or of some sort. He will do a test for AIDS and go through the assessment for that. There are no beds on the floor. I'm going to so they find me a quiet room of the ER for the wait. It is now evening and I have been here since early morning. I start having sweats so bad that I'm changing my bed and my gown every hour or so. I just want to sleep and get a good sleep. This is the first time I have been awake for this long in a month or so. It's about 2 in the afternoon the next day before I get a room. I'm lucky because I got a private room. They aren't sure if I'm contagious or not. They start gathering blood for more testing and tell me they're working on the medication that will be needed and the dose. They have hooked me up to a saline IV. Now, I have to get up every hour to go to the bathroom all day, all night. I can't sleep. My wife asked them to cut back on the IV solution, and when they do, I feel much better. No more hourly trips to the bathroom. The next day, in walks the internist that I saw previously and asks, "What brings you here? What has changed since I saw you last?" In other words, I said, "You were fine. Why are you here?" I could have slugged him. I'm sick. I'm not getting better. I'm getting worse, and someone needs to help figure this out. I feel like screaming. Anyway, out he walks, never to be seen again, not by me anyway. The next day, the hospitalist on duty comes to say they have identified the fungus and will start IV treatment the next day once they have figured out the dose. Meanwhile, my wife walks down to the pharmacy and has a talk with them, and they tell her the dose right away. He also mentioned at the time that the internist has sent away another blood sample and is looking for a rare disease that doesn't say what it is, just says he must be a country bumpkin and doesn't know what he's doing. I was put on fluconazole, very expensive, and sent home 2 days later. It is now October 8th, and I'm to follow up with the internist after 2 weeks, another chest x-ray to see how or if I'm clearing up. The last thing my wife does before we leave is to ask for a copy of the CT results and the requisition for a sinus CT that the internist ordered. When she gets home and starts to read the results, it highly recommends that I see a respirologist for immediately follow-up. She also knows that the blood test, ANCA, was reordered. The first one came back with a high level. She got on the internet and looked ANCA test and came up with Wegener's granulomatosis. Bells and whistles going off. That is it. She is so sure that this is what I have. It has lasted so many... It has listed so many symptoms that I have going back even 3 to 4 years. She is more determined than ever to get me to London. The internist has now been made aware that my wife is insisting on a respirologist, so he washes his hands of me. My family doctor gets the referral for a respirologist, and my appointment is booked for October 27th. When we get to London, I'm in pretty bad shape and in severe pain in my chest. This is new. It takes a couple of hours at the clinic, and the pain is getting worse. Thank God my wife has brought Tylenol 3 with her that helps ease the pain a bit. The respirologist has a plan. I'm to come back for 7 a.m. the next morning to a different hospital to have another bronchoscopy done, and the nurse tells my wife I am a pretty sick man. Really? You think? After the scope, the main man comes in, explains that the fungal infection is cleared up and that he is sure I have Wegener's and I'm to be admitted. No bets again. So they're going to discharge me and have me sit out in the waiting room to wait for a bed. My wife tells him there's no way I can physically manage, and if that's the case, she will have to take me home. The nurses decide that I can stay in my bed at least until 5 when they close. After that, who knows? The nurse calls the respirology unit every half hour and they find me a bed. It is now about 4:30 p.m. and off I go to my room. The next morning, the team comes in and verifies they're 99.9% sure that I have Wegener's. They explain what it is, what the treatment will be, how long it will be. My wife and I breathe a sigh of relief. It's not a good thing, this disease, but finally someone can identify it. I no longer am made to feel like it is all in my head. Someone is actually acknowledging the fact that I am ill. I am discharged on November 3rd and set up the chemo, treatments, prednisone therapy, as well as a long list of drugs I will need to counteract the drugs I'm on. I'm aware this is going to be a long haul. Driving home, I notice that my vision is very blurred. I'm not seeing... Sorry. I am not seeing things properly at all. Is it the drugs? It can't be. I have only been on prednisone for 3 days and I've only had 1 chemo treatment. And this is how it will be for the rest of my life. Symptoms, specialists, drugs, no known plan for my future, no income, no drug plan, etc., etc. I'm grateful each day I wake up this side of the grass. I'm grateful that we found support groups that contain the information we need to know that there's a lot of others with my disease, that there is hope. Now I'm learning to deal with the side effects of the drug, the aftermath of my disease. I cannot do much yet. I'm hopeful that once I am weaned off the prednisone, I will regain some strength. I am learning how difficult and frustrating it is to deal with the government. I need drug coverage. I need disability money. The list goes on and on. Weggie's Unite was among the first sites that we came across. Marta made us feel welcome immediately. She let us know that this will be a life-altering disease but can be managed. She provided some of the best clinical information that we have found to this date. That is my story. Thank you. It's wild when you're going through this stuff how much you learn. It is wild. I know so much about something I never wanted to know anything about. And it's weird. But I hope I can help people because being in the dark is such a weird experience. And in my story, they misdiagnosed me with terminal lung cancer, and my daughter was 3 years old, and they told me to make my final arrangements. And I'll tell you about my story, but to me, it was like such a blessing to finally be listened to, because I kept going to the doctors and telling them, I am dying inside. And they would tell me, oh, there's nothing wrong with you, and and they just kept giving me different antibiotics, and they tried to give me an antiviral, and I was like, no, they're just grasping at straws. And when I finally got diagnosed, it was a first-year interim student, medical student, and it was getting rid of a cancer, lung cancer, late-stage lung cancer diagnosis, where the doctors told me to make my final arrangements. And I was like, even though I was grateful that finally somebody's listening to me and they can't belittle my complaints anymore, I was like, no way. I'm fighting this. Even when you have something that is such a scary diagnosis, misdiagnosis in my case, you are like, okay, now I have something to fight, and people are paying attention. So I hope that Mike is doing well, and I wish him all the best. This was clearly written in the early stages of his experience, and hopefully he's got a handle on it and he's living a happy fruitful life. And I wish him, Mike, if you're listening to this from somewhere, from Chatham, Ontario, I am sending you tons of love, and I hope that everything has leveled out and become normal-ish, because it never becomes normal. It becomes a new normal. So I hope that you're all good. Sending you lots of love. Thanks for watching, everybody. Until next time. Bye.